They're not going to foul. The Heat will let it play out. It's over. At last, the long wait is over. After 47 years, the Denver Nuggets can finally call themselves NBA champions.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Basketball in the Mountains. This is episode 61. I am your host, as always, Tyler King, here back to talk NBA hoops on a Monday afternoon. We're recording this ahead of a couple, I think there's some games going on. There's been a very, very wacky schedule the last couple days with the giant snowstorm that has impacted mostly the East Coast, but also a little bit parts of the Midwest as well, with the Nuggets game on Sunday night getting postponed. I don't think they were. I think they were trying to get back to Denver today at some point. I don't think they were able to get back yesterday during the snowstorm. Like I said, it's been impacting the East Coast. Got some pictures from family members back home in Pennsylvania with very clearly a foot of snow at least. That was yesterday. Obviously, we had a very little snow here in Denver, a little bit during the Bronco game yesterday, which was pretty cool to be in person for that game. But back here talking hoops today on the pod. Didn't get a college hoops episode up last week. I just had a bunch of stuff going on. Like I said, I've been covering helping cover the Broncos throughout their playoff run, which is over now. So a little bit more free time on my hands. And huge, but did want to mention there's a huge game tonight. I've been talking about this game for weeks now. Arizona still unanimous number one team in the country at number 13 BYU tonight on ESPN. I think it's an 8 o'clock Mountain Time tip-off. I'm not exactly sure. I don't remember. But I will be tuning in to watch that game. And whoever wins that game will be breaking them down and that game in full later this week on the podcast for sure, ahead of another pretty fun week of hoops here in the Mountain Time Zone, even despite some struggles, especially for the teams locally. Not a great weekend. I think the Colorado Division I programs went a combined 0-6 on Friday and Saturday, so a little bit of a rough stretch here for some of the local teams in my area. But in the Mountain Time Zone in particular, as a whole, there's a lot of great teams. Got to see Utah State in person this past week on Friday night at Colorado State Moby Arena. That was a great comeback win for the Aggies. Felt like CSU was going to kind of run away with it, but they kept turning it over. Utah State makes a nice comeback and is able to shut down CSU late and come away with a win that they kind of needed after losing, two straight, their first two losses in Mountain West play. Kind of an ugly loss to UNLV a couple days before, and then obviously they had lost at Grand Canyon the week prior, and then they looked like they were on track to lose to the Rams on Friday night, but were able to make a nice second half comeback, just kind of stay in it throughout it. CSU obviously helped them out with a bunch of really bad turnovers during the game, but it was nice to see Utah State in action because this team has been fun to watch for the majority of the season. But without further ado, we are going to be talking NBA on the show today, and we are going to be talking about the Denver Nuggets once again because they continue to be the most interesting pro team here in the Mountain Time Zone. Even though Phoenix has been, a fun team to watch throughout the season, Denver continues to just be interesting for a variety of reasons. And to do so, we've got a guest. We've got our friend Vinny Benedetto, my colleague over at the Denver Gazette, our Nuggets beat writer. Vinny, how's it going?
Well, pretty well, Tyler. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. It's been a pretty busy few weeks for both of us. I know I've been doing the college hoop stuff for us at the Gazette and the Broncos stuff too. Was out at the facility the last couple weeks, and then at the game yesterday. Neither of us are Bronco people, but did you at least enjoy the Snow Bowl we got to see yesterday at Mile High?
Yeah, it was a really fun watch. I was planning on being in Memphis for the Nuggets game, and then my flights got canceled on Friday, and then had the game canceled yesterday. So met up with a few friends, watched the Broncos game, and that was probably the first time since I've been in Denver where I get to have like the viewing a big meaningful Broncos game like out in the city with friends. So obviously not the way they wanted it to go, but it was a cool, fun experience nonetheless.
Yeah, I was telling some people in the press box yesterday that, last time the Broncos had such a big playoff game, like a similar AFC title game against the Patriots 10 years ago. I was in high school back then. I remember watching it. I used to work at a gas station in high school, and I was like, I would work. It was actually a full service gas station in Pennsylvania. Even though New Jersey is one of the few states that it doesn't let you pump your gas. I used to pump gas outside, but also worked inside as a cashier. And we had a little TV on in the corner. I remember watching the Broncos go to advance the Super Bowl against the Patriots 10 years ago, back when I was in high school. So times have changed over the last decade or so for the Broncos. But I appreciate you hopping on today. Just like I said, we were going to be in Memphis for this game, for the game on Sunday. Did you find out, are the Nuggets, did they make their way back to Denver yet? I know this has been a pretty crazy weekend of flights being canceled across the country.
I assume they made it back. I know they weren't getting out last night. I texted a few people with the team, and the guys were, I think, that they got some food and drinks to the hotel for the guys to watch the Broncos game. But yeah, they were not planning on being back last night. So, I have to assume they got back today.
All right. Well, we'll talk about kind of the stretch that they've been on. Obviously, last time we had you on, I think it was early December, just kind of talking a little bit about early to mid-December, just talking about where the Nuggets were at that point of the season. Still, the injuries we talked about on that episode. I've talked about it on many episodes since, talking about the Nuggets. The injuries are still an issue for the Nuggets. Perfect timing ahead of tomorrow night's really fun game against the Pistons here in Denver, the top team in the East coming to Mile High City. Valanciunas, Murray, and Peyton Watson are all probable for the game with their various injuries. It's really just crazy. Jamal's got the hamstring thing. He's got the left hip thing, and Peyton's got a pair of sprained ankles. But Aaron Gordon, Christian Brown, Nikola Jokic, and Cam Johnson are all out with their various injuries. Anything kind of stick out to you with the injury stuff? Obviously, it's good that Peyton Watson, who left the game against Milwaukee the other day, or was it Washington? I'm sorry. It was Washington with the game where he had his career high 35 points, which we'll talk a little bit more about P-Watt as well, but left the game, came back. And now obviously AG started the game against the Bucks and appeared to re-aggravate that hamstring late in the second quarter there, while Jamal Murray was sitting out that game. And obviously the other three starters have kind of been out for a little bit here, with Christian Brown re-aggravating his ankle injury. Just kind of what sticks out to you on the injury report for the Nuggets here?
Yeah, I don't think there's really many surprises, and we've asked about all of these different injuries, and the Nuggets haven't been very clear or forthcoming with timelines. One thing David Edelman has said is, all of these guys are going through their own processes, and they're all kind of in different situations. A couple weeks ago, or maybe just a week ago, people were freaking out when they found out Jonas was ahead of Nikola, which obviously has now been the case. But for a lot of these guys, I think it's gonna follow the same trend we kind of saw with Jonas. They're gonna be listed as questionable. They're going to pop up on the injury report as questionable ahead of one of these games. They're going to go through their routines, and if they can go, they'll go. The only thing that really jumps out to me as interesting or something worth monitoring is the Christian Brown situation, because he's the one guy who did come back for a stretch of games, didn't look like himself, and then we followed up with Adelman about it, and it sounded like he didn't re-aggravate anything, he didn't re-injure anything. It was more of a realization that while he was cleared, he wasn't fully himself, or he wasn't able to do 100% of the things he's expected to do. So they just kind of had to press pause. And I'm surprised, I guess, that the pause has extended as long as it has, including him. It's not like he's been questionable and he's going through his pregame routines. He's still being ruled out of these games a day beforehand. So I think that's going to be kind of the one thing to monitor, or one thing that's kind of a little alarming to me, is that Christian's it doesn't feel, obviously they're doing stuff, but it just doesn't feel like you've been able to really see progress since he's pressed pause. He's not doing the pregame shooting that we've seen. At least Joker did that in Washington, and other guys have. Cam Johnson's been out there. It doesn't feel like we've really seen Christian in the same situation yet.
Yeah, and the AG injury is just tough because obviously it's been it's been a roller coaster for him this last year or so. The injuries obviously really popping up at the end of the OKC series, and then this year just kind of have you playing tough through stuff, and then now basically as soon as he gets back, he kind of quickly re-aggravates it because it's just been a prolonged absence for him at this point. You mentioned Joker obviously getting the chance. I remember seeing some of the videos on Thursday night before the game against the Wizards in Washington. There's still, over 2 weeks left until the All-Star break. Is there any kind of chance you feel like he comes back for the All-Star break? I know early timelines when he did eventually get hurt with this bone bruise, like, he'll probably be out till after the All-Star break, just kind of lining up timelines wise, might be wise to keep him out. But then there was, reports a week or so ago that he was ahead of schedule and maybe doing more than people expected. So do you feel like there's a chance he comes back before the All-Star break?
Yeah, I think there's a chance. It'll be interesting just because, the way Detroit plays, I don't know if that's the game I want. I want Joker coming back and
probably not.
Going up against Isaiah Stewart and those kind of
big
dudes.
Stu, yeah,
yeah. That doesn't feel like the smoothest. Hey, welcome back. And then what? They've got the Clippers.
Nets Clippers back-to-back Thursday, Friday, and then the Thunder on Sunday to wrap up a 4-game homestand here this week. Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess I wouldn't be shocked if it was similar to a Jonas situation where maybe he comes back to play the Nets. They give him the back-to-back, second night of the back-to-back off, and if he's up for it, you see him go again on against the Thunder. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he's back before the All-Star break. I equally wouldn't be surprised if they just kind of look at the schedule and say, hey, we've done all right, probably better than all right without him, or certainly better than expected. And as long as we can tread water, what's the harm in holding him out? Obviously, people are going to want to talk about the 65-game threshold. And Joker's not the type. If he can play, he's going to play.
Yeah.
So I don't think the 65-game thing is really going to be a huge part of the discussion. But yeah, so yeah, I wish I had a clear answer or a clear timeline on when to expect Joker back, but I think it's just going to be, the last we heard from DA about Joker's thing was he was still having good days and bad days, which, didn't sound too optimistic, but, I think it's going to kind of be like the Jonas thing where one day he's going to pop up questionable and then we'll know that, all right, there's really a chance for him to get back out there.
Yeah, like you said, they've been more than treading water without him. Now, the 14 games, 9-5. Now, granted, it's not really a murderer's row of opponents that they've been playing. You get Milwaukee twice during the stretch, the Wizards twice during the stretch. The Mavericks, who are clearly kind of going in a certain direction now. The Pelicans are not very good. Obviously, like I've talked about on the pod, the wins against Philly and Boston just kind of start this stretch, this winning streak at least. I think they've won 8 of their last. It's 8 of the last 11 or something like that, or something similar. It was impressive to start, and now they've kind of done what they needed to against some lesser teams with a couple bad losses in there. Some of it scheduled losses. They dropped a couple home games to Charlotte and to the Lakers, which again they were kind of in for the majority of that game. But obviously Peyton Watson is still kind of the story here over this stretch. Every time I watch him, I just become more and more amazed at how unsurprised I am by what he's doing. And that kind of was highlighted by his career high 35 against the Wizards the other night. The conversation has quickly gone from like, okay, the Peyton Watson is getting to a point where the Nuggets might not be able to afford him to. Do the Nuggets have a role that Peyton Watson is going to want in the future? Because I just don't know what his free agency is going to look like this summer. It's just a fascinating situation for him with the restricted free agency here. Just kind of how crazy is this for you kind of to watch this stretch for Peyton? Obviously, we've heard for years about how talented he is, but this is a guy that averaged 3 points a game in college, and now he's averaging, I think he's averaging over 20 points per game over this last stretch here, this 14 games, and is shooting the cover off the ball. Like the stuff he's doing with the ball in his hands, like the 2-pointers, the stuff from 2 he's doing is pretty crazy in the mid-range. So just sorry for rambling. There's kind of what is your biggest takeaway here on Peyton and kind of the situation that's unfolding for him that's coming up this summer?
Yeah, I think the most surprising thing to me is the consistency with which he's been able to do it. Like in the past, there were flashes of most of this stuff in previous years. He'd have a really impressive, 3-point shooting game. Then he'd make the highlight plays defensively. He'd have those kind of recovery blocks that are just like eye-opening. But his ability to kind of do all of these things on a pretty consistent basis for a guy who's still 23. Like I think there's, he's flashing real two-way star potential, which is, it's like he's realized all of his potential in a very short time. And yeah, I think the most surprising thing has kind of been, to your point, the off the dribble 2-point stuff, the mid range stuff, the variety of finishes around the basket. It felt like for a while, he was either a catch and shoot guy from three, or he's scoring in transition, or when he did put the ball on the floor, he was going all the way to the basket. It feels like he's kind of
dunker spot guy, getting some lobs. Yeah. Stuff.
Now it feels like he's doing like pull up mid range jumpers, or he's variety of floaters, or kind of different finishes around the basket. So he's certainly getting more expensive as the day goes by. And to your point about the role and the finances, I mean, I think there's one path to clearing up some money and clearing a spot in the starting lineup. I don't think any of this stuff, I don't think it makes sense for them to do anything until the offseason. They can't re-sign him now.
Yeah.
So I think I think they're probably going to have to explore avenues to create the lane for Peyton to get into that starting lineup and free up the money to get him there. But then I've also, I think the Cronkies are operating with the second apron as a hard cap.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that's out of everyone's control but the Cronkies. But I do think there's a situation where if Peyton plays so well and the trade market for a guy like Cam just isn't really there. I'm at the point, obviously easier for me to say than for them to pay the money and deal with the lack of flexibility. But, it doesn't feel like teams are using necessarily the flexibility they've created for themselves by avoiding the second apron. And if you have to go into the second apron to keep a guy like Peyton, I think I'd probably rather do that and have no flexibility than have flexibility and not have a guy like Peyton.
Yeah, it's really, really crazy just how, like I said, how quickly the conversation has shifted here. I remember talking with people, just colleagues of ours, people that are in the media space here, just about this last week, at Bronco practices. So there's some downtime to kill. Like it's not really fair. It's not Cam Johnson's fault or really fair to him that this conversation is happening because, he gets here. He feels like the perfect fit for the Nuggets. He's trying to work his way in. Like, he's a really smart player. He's a guy that's not like super assertive. Like, he wanted to kind of assimilate himself well. And then as some of the injuries started happening, he was really starting to play better. And I was really encouraged by some of the stuff he was doing right before he gets hurt. And now he's been out for a month or so and is still going to be out for a little bit more time here. And while this is happening, Peyton Watson is having this breakout season, and it's like you can't really lose you can't afford to just let a player like that walk. Like you said, given the age, 23 years old, and the fact that he is showing all of this two-way superstar upside, like I think the fit questions of like, is Peyton Watson becoming too good for the Nuggets starting lineup, and just how does he fit in now that you want to like let him continue to tap into all this stuff. But I just think like we're getting to the point now where it's like, yeah, they might have to try to trade Cam Johnson this summer to try to free up that space. And then if Valanciunas doesn't return, like that's pretty easy. Like there's $25 to $30 million that you can use per year on Peyton Watson, which is what I think it's definitely going to be at this point. Like if there are teams that really believe in him as a two-way superstar, like $30 million is going to be the bare minimum of what you're gonna have to spend per year on Peyton Watson. So it's gonna be really fascinating. And I think like it's not gonna be it's not a similar challenge to getting off Mike's contract because Peyton is still Cam is still cost controlled. I think he has 1 year left after this season, so he'll basically be an expiring contract this summer. And I think there will be plenty of teams that are still interested enough in him as a player. Like this is not, like I said, not an indictment of Cam Johnson as a player that this conversation about Peyton is happening. Like I think you'll be able to relatively easy get off the money without like having to attach a pick like they did with Mike. So you can kind of quickly free up the cap space, but that conversation is going to have to happen, whether it's like you said with the Cronkies and how much they're willing to spend into the second apron, like you said this summer. It's just really surreal, to be honest, just watching all these games. But I did want to pivot a little bit because I wanted to bring up the fact that Michael Porter Jr. is coming back to Denver this week for his first game, not with the team. Obviously, the Nuggets saw him earlier this month in Brooklyn, but Mike might be an all-star, man. He's been playing awesome for the Nets. It's really, I think, pretty stunning to see just kind of how easily he's been able to adapt to this number one scorer role, which it varies at times depending on if Cam Thomas is out there for Brooklyn, just kind of all the different guys they're working in and out with all the rookies they've got. But it's been really fun to watch. Like, what's been your biggest takeaway from seeing Mike away from the Nuggets for the first time in his NBA career?
Yeah, and I think we probably talked about this, last summer in the wake of the trade, where it's just like, don't be surprised if Cam's numbers take a hit because he's operating in this system, and don't be surprised if Mike's numbers take a leap because he's going to be playing with way more offensive freedom. But I guess the thing that jumps out to me is like he's maintained really solid efficiency while I think he's taken like just under 10 threes a game. I think, for the most part, the degree of difficulty on the threes he's taking is probably higher than the standard level of threes he was taking.
Tougher than it's ever been. Yeah.
So just watching him kind of, dance with the ball a little bit and, jump back for a step back three and knock it down over a contest. I've just really enjoyed watching Mike play because, you spend enough time around him. He always felt he was capable of doing this kind of stuff. Yeah. He was a good soldier in Denver. Like, there was maybe a time or two where he, remarked about some of the challenges of staying in a rhythm when, there were times when he was not closing games or he was sitting for extended stretches. And then,
those are conversations during the playoffs the last couple of years. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
We need a three. Okay, Mike, you haven't played in, 15 minutes of real time. Go out there and hit a tough one for us. So I think he's embraced the challenge of being that guy, even if it's, not necessarily in a winning situation. But, I'm just happy that he kind of got to show people, there was some truth to what he was saying, when he was frustrated in Denver at times. So, I think it's been a really, good situation for Mike.
Yeah, I mean, there was a reason he was the number one recruit in the country back when he was in high school, and before he had all of the pretty debilitating back injury stuff that he dealt with at Mizzou for that lone year he was there, and kind of how much that set back his career for a couple of years. And we talked about this when the trade happened last summer, just kind of how much he went through while he was here injury wise, like even behind the scenes, just the stuff he had to do to kind of get ready to play on a daily basis, aside from all the other random injuries that he was dealing with, like last year with the shoulder, and kind of all the injections he was getting just to kind of get his body ready to play these huge playoff games against Oklahoma City last year in particular. I'm sure you, like myself, I'm planning on coming to the game on Thursday. Expect a pretty nice ovation for Mike when obviously the Nuggets will have a tribute video for him at probably the first time out. I'm sure you're expecting a pretty nice ovation for MPJ. Obviously, a champion and all that kind of stuff. And I think fans always appreciated kind of the effort he did, even if there was some frustration at times, like there is with most players.
Yeah, I would really hope the people of Denver give Mike a warm reception. There were some who were critical of him. There were, obviously there were defensive lapses and there was some off the court stuff that, people weren't thrilled about during Mike's time in Denver. But yeah, I do think, everything he's done. And I think you were right to bring up what he went through last year in the playoffs, effectively playing with one arm, one functioning arm. I think that probably should, overweigh anything negative. So yeah, I'm really hoping and expecting Mike gets the ovation here he deserves.
I think I mentioned this before we started recording, but All-Star reserves are getting mentioned or getting announced this weekend, I think on Sunday. And we could be living in a world a week from today where Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, and Michael Porter Jr. are all All-Stars this season, which would be pretty cool, to be honest. Just for that core that was together for so long and was always viewed as the future and the core that really delivered this franchise's first championship. So it's nice to see all those guys having really good individual seasons here. Any other takeaways from you just kind of with the recent stretches? Obviously that game against Milwaukee the other day, the last game the Nuggets played on Friday night on the back-to-back where AG does get hurt, where Julian Strawther had probably his best game of the season. Tim Hardaway Jr. is still shooting the lights out from coming off the bench. Bruce Brown played pretty well, I thought, and just some more Zeke Naji weirdness. He had a double-double again. It just whoever's out there, it kind of feels like they're getting production from everybody. It just kind of has anybody really stuck out to you though during the stretch that you want to give a shout out to?
I mean, yeah, Tim feels like he's just been probably one of the best value signings so far this season. Oh, yeah. And, just the willingness to kind of be that guy. There was an 0 for 8 or a 1 for 10 from 3-point range, baked in there. But his ability to just like, he's a veteran. He's been through all this stuff before, but just to kind of have the humility, I guess it's kind of a weird way to put it, but to say, I don't care if I'm 0 for 9 right now. The team needs me to take these shots, and I'm going to keep doing it. And the driving dunks that have been fun to watch. I didn't, those always open my eyes a little bit. But yeah, I think, Tim has been a huge reason why they've been able to stay afloat. I think it's valuable. Kind of what we saw from it was the fourth quarter of the Charlotte game from Julian, where he finally got to like shake off that rust in a game that was already decided. But, his ability to come in and I think he scored 16 in that third quarter in Milwaukee. That was a huge, that basically bought them that win. So I think that's valuable. So yeah. And then, guys like Zeke, I'm not expecting much ahead of the trade deadline with the Nuggets, but I think there's a situation where the Nuggets try to get just under the luxury tax. So that might mean moving on from a guy like Zeke. And, for a long time, that contract has been considered, untradeable or a negative asset. And I don't think these last few weeks are really going to change much, but, maybe it makes it a little easier. So maybe you get off of that contract by attaching a second round pick as opposed to a first. I don't know what it's all going to look like. But yeah, so yeah, I think Tim has really opened eyes, and I feel like Zeke has had these stretches, each of the past couple of seasons where he has, 5-game stretch where it's like, okay, he is like still playable or serviceable. But yeah, so we'll see if that can continue.
Has anyone changed your opinion of like what they could be in a potential playoff rotation, aside from Peyton, obviously, because his is just out of this world, just bonkers stuff that he's been doing. But has any of the other role guys been like, okay, that definitely is affected? Like, I definitely could see them being a little bit, you see the improvement, and it's like that they could definitely be a part of the playoff rotation this year, whether it is Julian, who was at times last year, especially in that Thunder series, or Jalen Pickett, who has been at times. I think he was part of the rotation in the Clippers series before that quickly went away, but it kind of always felt like, when the Nuggets have their fully healthy starting five, like it's Tim Hardaway Jr., Jonas Valanciunas, Bruce Brown, and Peyton Watson are the 4 guys coming off the bench, and that could even shrink to 8, with Bruce Brown likely being the likely guy that gets squeezed out of there. But has anybody else like played so well that you're like, man, I really feel like they might get a look in certain matchups, because that's kind of what the playoffs are all about at this point. Has anybody changed your opinion of what they could be in the playoffs?
Yeah, I think Jalen Pickett's that guy for me. Just in like, I don't think he's like been like, the loudest performer, but I think it's just like he can be a steadying guy who, can keep the train running on time, run the offense, or, knock down open shots, kind of do whatever's needed from him in that aspect. If you would have asked me before the season if the Nuggets needed to play Jalen Pickett in a playoff series, I probably would have put that pretty close to like disaster scenario. But now it's just like, yeah, they could do it. And I think it would be
pretty well, like as the point guard or playing, the 2 alongside a guy like Jamal. Like he's pretty versatile at this point of his career. And I've always liked him alongside Jokic too. Whenever he's gotten to play with Joker, he's been pretty solid. Just 2 smart players that kind of know how to play off each other. But yeah, I've been impressed with Pickett too.
So yeah, I think he's just kind of the guy where, it went from this would have to be a kind of emergency situation for him to play meaningful minutes to now, to your point, where in the right matchup, I could see him being a guy, or if, Bruce has been one of those guys where it just feels like he's kind of been up and down this year. And if he's in one of those stretches where he's not making open shots or not shooting it with confidence, I think Jalen would be a guy they could turn to pretty quickly there.
Yeah, he also just plays super hard. Like that was evident to me when I was watching the Bucks game the other day. Just like how quickly he's just running around trying to make smart rotations and get to where he needs to be on the floor on both ends of the court. I mean, obviously I'm going to defend that guy, but I think he's just kind of proven this year that he's just an NBA player. Like even if he's not like a regular playoff guy, like I think he can be on an NBA roster and have a useful role in the regular season for years to come. Like I think it's just where the Nuggets ended up getting him. I think he's been a huge hit and one of a part of the Calvin Booth redemption tour as he sits out this year and attends DU basketball games, where I saw him the other night. Just kind of seeing him around town is still pretty fun. But part of his redemption tour with him, obviously drafting Peyton Watson, trading a pick to draft Peyton Watson. Zeke Naji contract maybe is a little bit not as bad as it once looked. Jalen Pickett obviously playing well. I think did he originally sign Spencer Jones? Was that last year when he was originally on a two-way? So that probably would have been Calvin. So, Spencer Jones has been useful. Julian Strawther is still having his moments. So, Calvin Booth redemption tour during Nikola Jokic's injury. So, all right, Vinny, that'll do it. That's all I got for you today. I really appreciate you hopping on. Should be a fun week at Ball Arena this week. Like I said, with Pistons coming to town on Tuesday, then we got the Nets, Clippers, and Thunder to round out the week here. Anything kind of in particular you're looking forward to before I get you out of here?
No, I mean it should just be a great week. I'm looking forward to obviously seeing the Pistons tomorrow. I try to watch as much of the rest of the league as I can, but I obviously kind of skew my viewing towards Western Conference teams. But whenever I've had a chance to watch the Pistons, I've really enjoyed it. Cade's obviously, if Joker doesn't hit 65 games, I think Cade probably is now a top 2, top 3 guy in the MVP race. Detroit's been fun. Looking forward to seeing Mike. Should just be a great week. Clippers have been playing really well of late, and
I think they're like 15-3 in their last 18 games. Something like that. They've been rolling. Yeah.
And then, I'm super excited to see Oklahoma City, first time this season, albeit it doesn't sound like they'll be at full strength, and they're kind of,
J-Dub's still out, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say they're struggling a bit because they're not 22-1 anymore.
The 74 win conversation quickly just dissipated when that stretch when they were losing the Spurs last month.
But it should be probably one of the better weeks of the regular season for Nuggets fans. And, obviously that would change depending on who's available. But regardless, it should be a fun week.
Yeah, I'll be down there for 3 of the 4 games. I think I might try to make all of them. I'm definitely excited to see this team in action. So appreciate you hopping on today, man.
All right. Yep.
All right, that'll do it for today's episode of Basketball in the Mountains. Thanks again to my colleague at the Denver Gazette, Vinny Benedetto, for joining us on this episode to talk Nuggets, all things, Peyton Watson, injuries, Michael Porter Jr.'s return to Denver, all that kind of stuff. So really good conversation today, and thanks to all of you for listening. Make sure to subscribe wherever you listen, whether it's at Spotify, Apple, wherever you prefer to get your podcast, or if you prefer to watch on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to my channel there. Leave a like on the video, leave a comment. All that stuff is super appreciated by me. It helps to grow the show. So without further ado, thanks again for listening, and enjoy the week of basketball.